Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is our last webinar of our October webinar series. The topic for tonight is financial planning. We've already covered Social Security, so if you're interested in that, feel free to check out that webinar. And then our one last week was on rollovers and different rollover plannings and different rollover options. So feel free to take a look at that one as well if you have any questions about rollovers. Before we begin, just want to mention a couple of different things. First, we're going to be recording this session and we'll be sending out a copy probably early next week. So look for that in your email and on our social media pages. And then secondly, we do have a lot to cover tonight, so we won't be taking any questions, but if you have anything that comes up that's specific to your situation or you want to know more about, feel free to call us or email us. You can call us at 1-833-Emerj360 or email us at info@emerj360.com, and then we will respond to your questions then. So those are kind of the basics for our webinar tonight. And we will go ahead and get started. Again, the topic for tonight is financial planning. So before we get into the content, just want to spend a couple minutes just describing or kind of outlining who our team is. So my name is Heather Jordan. I'm the managing director for the Emerj360 team. I've been with TrustPoint for about 4 years now, previously working in TrustPoint's wealth management department. I took over launching Emerj360 and leading the team last October. So we've been open for about a year now. I'm a CFP or certified financial planner. So I do all the financial planning for our Emerj360 clients as well as our TrustPoint clients as well. Brett Sibian, who is also on the call today, is our financial coach. He has also been at TrustPoint for about 4 years. He was previously in TrustPoint's investment department, so he works with a lot of our clients on investment questions on markets, where we think things are going, things like that. And he also leads our education for all of our 401k plans that TrustPoint administers. So jumping right into the content for tonight. Again, the topic is financial planning, and financial planning encompasses all of the things that you can see on the slide here. So tax planning, retirement planning, Social Security, estate planning, insurance planning, education planning, a lot of different things. We're going to talk super high level on a couple of these different things tonight. If you have more specific questions, again, feel free to call us or email us, and we're happy to set up a meeting to kind of dive into your specific situation. So I wanted to start off tonight with just a checklist. This is something really handy if you wanted to take a screenshot of this or just write this down or kind of replay our webinar next week and take note of some of these topics. This is a really nice checklist to show different financial planning topics. And if it's up to date for you, if it needs to be reviewed, if you need to update it, or if it doesn't even make sense for your situation. So tax planning, that's things like, do you have a CPA or do you do your own taxes? Do you have different strategies in place for different tax situations that come up? Just kind of discussing those with your spouse or partner, or whoever you are kind of combining your finances with to make sure you have that in order. Charitable planning. So do you have charitable intent? And if you do, how are you going to execute that? So are you going to gift when you're alive? Are you going to gift when you pass? Do you have any specific charities in mind? Just kind of having that conversation with, again, your spouse or your partner. Investment planning and allocation. This is a big one, especially now that markets have been down quite a bit. Oftentimes we hear from clients, I have an account here, I have a 401k here, I have an IRA somewhere else, and they're all kind of invested differently. So it's really hard to get a holistic picture of what their assets look like and how they're actually invested. So financial or investment planning and allocation takes a look at how that is overall. So maybe you have some accounts that are heavily in stock, some that are heavily in bonds. What does that balance look like? And is there kind of a more appropriate portfolio to establish across all of your accounts? Retirement planning, obviously this is a really big part of financial planning. You should be contributing to your 401k if you have one. There's also other options with IRAs, different taxable accounts, things like that. Just making sure you're prioritizing saving specifically for retirement. Social Security and Medicare. So if you're closer to retirement age, starting to pay attention to what your options are, knowing how much you're going to get monthly, what that projection is, kind of timing. Should I take Social Security early? Should I take it later? That's a good one to look at the webinar that we had a couple weeks ago to determine what the options are for that. Estate planning, we'll talk about that in a couple slides. Do you have a plan in place? Do you know where it is? Is it what you want to accomplish? Things like that. Beneficiary designations. So do you have beneficiaries on IRAs, 401ks, making sure those are up to date. And then insurance planning, more than just health insurance. It includes life insurance, property and casualty insurance, and things like that. So this slide has a lot of information, but what I want to cover tonight, we're starting with estate planning, is the level 1 must-haves. This is what everyone should have. And we often get a comment from people saying, oh, I don't have an estate. I don't have $1 million, so I don't need an estate plan. But the fact is that if you have a house, if you have a vehicle, any belongings, maybe you have a 401k or IRA or different bank accounts, then you have an estate and you should have an estate plan. So kind of the two primary options you can have for your estate plan, starting again on the left, the level 1 for must-haves are a will or a living trust. So a will is great for people who have minor children who want to appoint a guardian for them should they pass. This also spells out how you want your property split once you pass. So if you have minor children at home, highly recommend that you have a will and put something in place. A lot of people are intimidated to go through this process, but it's actually pretty easy. What you would do is contact an estate planning attorney. You basically have an interview with them and they ask you all sorts of questions like, what are your assets? Do you have any children? Do you have any charitable intent? If you have children, if you pass, do you want your assets to go in trust for them? Do you want them to get it outright? We'll ask you all of these questions and kind of guide you and help discover what your wants and wishes are for your assets should you pass. So you'll have that meeting. They will draft or write the document for you. You'll come in and review it with them and then sign it and it will be in place. So it's not as intimidating as people think it can be. And make sure if you have minor children, you really should have a will that establishes who the guardian would be should you pass away. A living trust is the next basic option for your estate. This is something that does not go through a probate process, so it's a little bit more private than a will. It designates, again, how your assets will be divided upon your death. This is a good option if you have real estate in a couple different states. Maybe you have a vacation home in Minnesota, your primary home in Wisconsin. You'll want to have a living trust or revocable trust to determine how your assets will be passed to your beneficiaries when you pass. Anyone who has kind of a more complicated situation, or if you truly value privacy, the living trust will be the better option for you. How to accomplish that, again, is to work with an estate planning attorney. We at TrustPoint do not draft anything, but we can refer you to an attorney if you have questions or want help kind of making that introduction and making the first step towards completing your estate plan. The next two documents, again, are very important. Definitely must-haves for estate planning, and everyone should have them. The first one is the healthcare power of attorney. This allows you to designate someone to make specifically healthcare decisions on your behalf. This should be someone that you trust because it's a huge decision to make healthcare decisions for someone. So typically people pick a spouse or a sibling or a child. If you have adult children, maybe you have a friend, someone like that. Again, someone you trust to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. If you go to Gunderson or Mayo, they typically have a form on file. If you go in for your physical, just ask them for the form and they'll give it to you and you can fill it out and give it right back to them, and it's pretty easy to complete. A financial or property power of attorney is, think of it as the same thing, except it's for your finances and your property. So again, this should be someone that you trust. They're going to make good decisions on your behalf. You're confident that they will follow through upon your wishes. They can make financial decisions for you if you either are not able to, or you can set it up where they can make them right away once the document is signed. If you're already going to go to work with an attorney on your will, they can also help with your healthcare power of attorney and financial power of attorney. Joint accounts, just take a look again at how all of your accounts are titled. If an example of this is if you have a revocable trust, it's pretty much useless unless you retitle all of your accounts in the name of the revocable trust. So if you have that, you'll have to rename your bank accounts, your property, things like that. You will not have to rename your IRA or 401k, but anything else should be named in the name of the revocable trust. And the attorney that you work with will help you uncover which accounts should be retitled and which ones don't need to be. But essentially, if you don't do that, the trust is ineffective. And then lastly is beneficiary designations. And I think that's so important. So I have another slide on it that I just want to cover after this one. So those, again, are the basics, must-haves for estate planning. If you have a more complicated situation, or maybe you have certain needs for charitable giving, or you're going to hit the gift tax amount, things like that, there are different things you can put in place. Those are shown on the level 2 and level 3 options. I'm not going to go through those today, but again, if you have specific questions, we can set up a meeting and discuss what options are available for you. So beneficiary designations, this is very, very important. If you have a 401k or an IRA, you should have both primary and contingent beneficiaries listed. These are people who are going to get your assets should you pass away. So if you pass away, those assets are going to go to the primary beneficiary. If you pass away and the primary beneficiary has already passed, the assets are going to go to your contingent beneficiary. So it's really, really important to have both listed. That way, if something happens, you're covered. Another thing, important note with this is that beneficiaries override a will or a trust. So I always use the example, let's just say I have in my will that I want everything to go to my husband. But then on my 401k, I say, I want these assets to go to my sister. If I were to pass, my 401k would still go to my sister, even though my will would say everything would go to my husband. So make sure those are aligned and you don't have any conflicting strategies or people listed there, because anything that's listed specifically as a beneficiary will override the will or the trust. A POD or TOD, these are for bank accounts and investment accounts, payable on death and transfer on death. These are options if you want to put them on like a bank account or an investment account. Your bank should be able to help you with that, or your investment advisor if you have investable assets you want to apply that to. And then update annually, or if there's any major life event. So anytime you have a new child, maybe you get divorced, maybe you get married, maybe you have a change of mind on who you want your assets to go to, take a look at your beneficiaries and make sure that they are up to date. We've heard some horror stories from people who forget or just don't take the time to update their beneficiaries because they think nothing's going to happen to them, and then their assets end up going to someone that they either didn't want them to go to, or just they hadn't updated it to new people. So make sure those are up to date and you check them annually just to make sure nothing's changed. I wanted to show this slide, and I'm not going to go over it in detail, but the point I wanted to make on here is that for 2022, the annual exclusion gift is $16,000. So you're able to give anyone you want $16,000 without having to file a gift tax return and without it eating up this estate exclusion and lifetime gift tax exemption shown at the bottom. If you want to give someone more than $16,000, you can definitely do that, but you're going to have to file a gift tax return and it'll cut into this amount that you have at the end of your life. Next, I want to jump to education planning. This is a really common question we get from people who are younger. Maybe they have young kids at home. Maybe they have kids in middle school or high school, and they're just starting to think about what it could look like to provide for their education. So this chart is pretty shocking to most people, but wanted to show this, and it covers public 2-year, public 4-year, public 4-year out of state, and private nonprofit 4-year. The costs currently, the cost in 6 years, the cost in 12 years, and the cost in 18 years. So picking out one example, let's just say that you have a newborn at home and you want to pay for their education and they're going to go in 18 years. Let's just say they're going to go to a public 4-year in-state. By the time they get to college in 18 years, it's going to be about $60,000 per year for their undergraduate expenses. So costs are really going up quite significantly for education. And the point of this slide isn't to make you panic and make you think you need to save more, but just want to give you a realistic picture of what it could look like if you want to fully fund education for your children. I also want to point out that it's important to save for your retirement prior to saving for education for someone else. They could always get a scholarship, financial aid, maybe they get a part-time job, or maybe they don't even go to college. But once you retire, you have to live off of the assets that you have saved. So make sure you're saving for yourself first prior to saving for education for someone else. So the next question that we get from people is, how do I save for education? So there's two primary different options. The first one is a 529 plan. In Wisconsin, we have what's called EdVest. So this is basically an account that's the sole purpose of saving for education. You contribute to the account's invested, the account grows. When you take a distribution for a qualified education expense, it's non-taxable and you never pay tax on any of those earnings. The kicker with this is if you take a distribution not for a qualified education purpose, there is ordinary income tax plus a penalty. So if you're thinking this is an account you want to use for something other than education, or maybe you're not sure if your child or whoever you're saving for is going to go on to college, this is probably not the best option for you. Another kind of plus with this is that you can change beneficiaries. So if you have more than one child, you can change beneficiaries in and out. There's no income limit for contributors. And then the investment allocation can be changed up to 2 times per year. So you can't change it every single day. Again, these are long-term funds meant to be used specifically for education. If you heard that and you're like, I'm not sure if I want to save for education, or I don't know if my beneficiaries, children, friend, whoever you're saving for is going to go on to college, there is another option out there. It's called a custodial account. This is an account that does not necessarily have to be used for education, but the key with this one is that when the child reaches age of majority, it automatically becomes their account. So in Wisconsin, the age is 18. Once the child turns 18, it's their account. They can take the money out for a vacation, for a car, maybe to buy a house, whatever it is. So make sure if you have the intent only of education, this is not the best option for you. If you want more options, this is going to be the better account for you. There are different tax rules associated with this. I'm happy to cover those. Or if you just Google, what are the tax consequences or tax rules for custodial accounts, you'll find them online as well. So this chart shows, again, sticking with the education theme, if the cost of college is $40,000 per year, the cost of college increases by 4.5% per year. If your savings rate grows at 6% per year and you wish to fully fund education, shows how much you'll have to save to reach those goals. So it's quite a bit of money. Again, you can Google this or watch this back and look at this chart a little bit more. But again, just want to reiterate that it's important to save for your retirement first prior to education for someone else. We also get a question a lot on, how much are people saving for education for kids? Are they saving 100% of their costs, 50%, 25%? And it's really all over the board. We have clients who don't want to contribute anything to education for their kids, some who want to contribute 100%, some want to contribute a certain dollar amount instead of percentage. So it's all over the board, and there really isn't a standard response or option that we get from people, but these are the numbers if you wish to fully fund those costs. So moving on to retirement planning, we had this slide in a couple of our other presentations, but I think it's so important to show, and it's also a really big part of financial planning. It's often what people think primarily of financial planning is specifically saving for retirement. The industry recommends saving between 10 and 15% of your income annually. The good thing is that includes anything you put in and anything your employer puts in. We always recommend putting in as much as you can to get your full employer match. So for example, if your employer matches dollar for dollar up to 5%, be sure you're putting in 5% of your own money to get that full match. Otherwise, you're leaving essentially free money on the table. So that's probably the biggest mistake, I guess, we see from people is not maxing out their employer match and not taking advantage of those free funds. I won't go through a lot of this since we covered it in another webinar, but it just shows that people are not saving enough for retirement, and financial planning can really help you align your goals, your wants, your wishes to how much you should be saving. So if you're someone who wants to take a lot of vacations in retirement, maybe you want to buy a second home, maybe you want to leave gifts to a certain charity or have a fund for your kids or grandkids, you're going to have to save quite a bit more than this 10 to 15%. If you're someone who's pretty good on a budget, you don't really have many big wants or wishes, you don't want to travel, you don't want to buy new vehicles every couple of years, you could probably get away with saving a little bit less. And that's where a financial plan really comes into play, because we can take your specific situation and say, these are your goals for retirement. So this is specifically how much you should be saving to meet those goals. The other common question we get from people is, how long am I going to be living? Should I be planning for age 75, 80, 85? What does that look like? This chart shows the probability of living to certain ages for men, women, and a couple. When we do financial planning at TrustPoint and Emerj360, we use men living till age 92 and women living until age 94. This is because we don't want your money to run out sooner than expected. So oftentimes clients say, I'm not going to live past 80, so I'm only going to plan till 80. That's not a very realistic expectation. So we want to make sure your money lasts well into retirement. And this kind of comes into play with your investment allocation. So when you retire, you still have to have your funds growing for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So you shouldn't just move all of your money into cash, because you still need it to grow for the next 30 years. This chart is an example of if what your income is, what your age is, how much you should save for retirement. If you have a TrustPoint 401k, there's a really cool tool when you log into your website that's kind of a calculator specific to your situation. You can play with that. You can also Google retirement calculator. There's tons out there that can show you how much you should be saving, but a financial plan will really get you down to a specific number and be more accurate specifically for your situation. And we can project, how long you're going to be living, what your goals are, what your spending is, because spending is different for all of our clients. We can get a little bit more specific, but for a starting place, you can just Google retirement calculator, see if you're on track. And then if you want more specifics on your situation, a financial plan is going to be the better route. Another question we get from people is traditional versus Roth. What's the better option? Again, financial planning, we can take a look at this and say specifically for you, given your tax bracket, given your goals for money, for leaving money to people, or if you want to spend all of your money, we can give specific recommendations. But the primary difference between the two is that with Roth, you pay the tax now, a gross tax-free distribution, qualified distribution when you retire. If you save traditional or pre-tax dollars, you're not paying the tax now, and you pay tax later on when you take a distribution. So as part of planning, we'll take a look at your tax bracket and see what makes the most sense given your goals and what you hope to accomplish. There are different rules for IRAs versus 401ks, and we could cover those as well. A couple things I wanted to point out, since we're talking specifically about retirement planning and financial planning, is there are a couple different tools out there. The first one is backdoor Roth contributions. So there is a limit to people who can contribute to a Roth IRA. There's an income limit. If you're over that limit, you're not able to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. However, there is something called a backdoor Roth contribution, where you contribute funds to a traditional IRA and then immediately convert them to a Roth IRA. So you're going to pay tax on those, and it's not going to be a non-deductible contribution, but it's kind of a back way around not being able to contribute to a Roth account because you make too much money. So if you're interested in that, we do provide that service with Emerj360 and with TrustPoint, and we can help you navigate what that could look like for your situation. The other one I wanted to point out is Roth conversion. So you are able to convert traditional dollars into Roth dollars. You'll have to pay the tax on that, but that'll give you more options once you retire because you'll have traditional dollars and Roth dollars. So we do this a lot for clients who have retired and maybe they have not yet taken Social Security. So they're probably in a lower tax bracket than they were when they were working. We'll do Roth conversions, move some of that traditional money into Roth accounts. You're going to pay income tax on it, but it'll then continue to grow tax-free. Another time we do this for clients is if maybe one spouse is retired and one is still working, so their income is lower than what it had been before. It's a really great time to do a Roth conversion. It's also a good time when markets are down. This is because balances are lower, so you have less to move over to Roth. You'll pay less in tax. So now is a really good time to be thinking about Roth conversions as well. So there are different pros and cons to this, and this is something we can talk about in a financial plan. But again, anything you convert from traditional dollars to Roth dollars, you're going to have to pay tax on. If you're someone who wants to leave funds to beneficiaries and not have them have to pay income tax on that, this is a really good option. And then you're also going to want to continue saving Roth dollars, because any Roth dollars you leave to beneficiaries, they're not going to have to pay tax on them because you already did. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we had another webinar on this, but if you are interested, take a look at that webinar. We go more into detail on what this looks like, but there are many things to think about for Social Security, such as when to take it, how you apply for benefits, the amount that you get, and then if you take it before your full retirement age or after, different pros or cons there. So something that we covered in our last presentation was that there's a common misconception that retirement age is age 65. And that's the case for some people, but not the case for everyone. You can see on the chart on the right, full retirement age given your year of birth. This is not the age that you have to work until. This is the age that you'll get 100% of your Social Security benefits. If you take your benefits early, there will be a permanent decrease in your benefits. If you take your benefits after your full retirement age, let's just say you wait until age 70 to take them, there's a permanent increase in your benefits. This chart shows what that could look like. So the 0 in the middle is your full retirement age. You're getting 100% of your Social Security benefit. If you delay benefits by 1 year, you get 108% of those benefits. That's a permanent increase. If you wait 2 years, 116%, 3 years, 124%, and so forth. If you take benefits early, you can see on the other side of the table, there's a permanent decrease in your benefits. So if you take them 1 year early, you're only going to be getting 93.3% of your benefit. Again, permanent decrease. So there's different strategies in place for should you spend your assets and wait to take Social Security, or should you take Social Security sooner, save your assets, different strategies there. And that's something that financial planning can help with and look at your specific situation. Moving on to risk management and insurance. So TrustPoint and Emerj360, we don't sell insurance, but we can help you figure out, what are your needs? Are you covered enough? Things like that. So the first one I want to talk about today is life insurance. So if you have minor children or you have any debt, or let's say you have mortgage, student loans, things like that, you're going to want to have life insurance to pay that off should something happen to you and you still have balances. Maybe you want to have enough life insurance to pay for education for your children should you pass away prematurely. It's really, really important to have life insurance and enough of it. Oftentimes employers offer fairly reasonable cost life insurance as an employee benefit, but you may need to go to an insurance provider to get extra insurance if you have other debts out there, other education needs, things like that. So take a look at what you have currently, and if you have any questions on is that sufficient, do you need more, we're happy to discuss that. The other one I want to point out on here is property and casualty insurance. Make sure you know where your policy is. Make sure you know how much it is. Make sure you know that it's going to cover your full property should something happen. If the value of your property goes up and you don't increase your property insurance, you may not be fully insured should you have a major event happen. So make sure you have, first off, a policy in place, know where it is, and make sure it's sufficient coverage for everything that you have. And then life insurance, health insurance. Most people get this through their employer while they're still working. Make sure you know what your options are. In a couple slides, we're going to talk about an HSA or health savings account. A couple common mistakes that people make with insurance is failing to understand their coverage terms, not purchasing coverage or purchasing coverage that does not cover the full replacement cost, or not revisiting or updating coverage as net worth changes over time. I won't go through this specific example, but there is extra insurance out there that you can get should something happen, and your insurance agent will be able to help you determine what that is. Financial planning could also cover what that specific number is for you and if there's any gaps in insurance for your situation. Health insurance. So I want to skip over this slide and move to this HSA slide. So if your employer has a high deductible health plan, they may also offer an HSA or health savings account. This is a great option and a great bucket for you to fill. Let's say you're already contributing between 10 and 15% to your retirement account. You have life insurance, you have your emergency fund in place, which would be 3 to 6 months of expenses. in cash saved for emergencies, this is the next bucket that you're going to want to fill. So this is account used specifically for healthcare. So you can see in this example, let's just say you earn $3,333 per month. On the left, they are not utilizing an HSA. On the right, they're putting in $200 per month. So they're paying tax, and you can see that the take-home pay is higher because both people had $2,400 of medical expenses. The one on the right was able to take funds from the HSA to pay for those. So anything you contribute to an HSA, you are not paying tax on it, gross tax-free. Distribution is tax-free if used for qualified medical expenses. So again, if you have your 401k, you're saving enough, you have your emergency fund in place, this is the next bucket that I would look to start saving again, but you have to be in a high deductible healthcare plan. Last couple slides here I just want to cover is people often forget cybersecurity, fraud prevention, all of that again is a part of financial planning that people often don't think about. Make sure you have really strong passwords on your accounts. Don't use the same password for every single account, because if someone gets that password, they'll be able to get into everything instead of just one account. Use multi-factor authentication. Basically, this is a text or an email. When you try to log into something, you'll get that notification, have to type in a code. It's just kind of an extra layer of security. And then another one I want to point out is review your credit report. So I have Credit Karma and I check that. It's a free service. You can see if anyone's opened an account in your name, what your balances are, what your credit score is. There's other services out there that can do that as well, but just make sure you're reviewing all of your statements to make sure your charges look accurate. No one's opened an account in your name or anything like that. And just be cognizant of what your payment is and not just set it on auto payment. For fraud prevention, there's a lot that we hear from people going on. Make sure you're just aware of if someone calls you, don't give any personal information. Never give your social over the phone, your birth date. Those are all private things. If you sign up for free trial offers of things, make sure you cancel them when you are done with the free trial so you're not getting charged for things that you don't know. There are services out there that actually check for how many subscriptions that you're signed up for, and that's a really good option. If you think you're signed up for a lot of them, you just want to keep track of how much you're spending, things like that. So just be aware of information that you're putting in online or giving over the phone to someone that you don't know. And then lastly, I just want to cover, so again, today the topic was financial planning, and we just touched the surface on several different topics. But if you're interested in going more in depth to your specific situation, Emerj360, we work with clients who have investable assets of $50,000 and up. So if you have maybe an IRA out there, maybe an old 401k, maybe you have a big checking or savings account balance that you want to get invested, we're happy to help assist with that. And then financial planning is included with that at no extra charge. So it's really a great option for people who want financial planning, either a full plan, or if you have specific questions on saving for education, maybe you have life insurance questions, maybe you have questions on prioritizing saving versus paying off debt. That's a common one for some of our younger clients. They have student loans, car payments, things like that. How do they make sure they're saving enough for retirement while also paying down this debt? That's something we can definitely help with in financial planning. And then lastly, I just wanted to show a snippet of one of our tools. So we can do a full financial plan, or we have what's called My Blocks. And this is great for people who are in their 30s and 40s who have specific financial planning questions. We can pinpoint those questions, dive into those questions, and give answers on maybe refinancing your mortgage or spending versus borrowing, what's the better option for you? We can do all of this, again, along with a full financial plan or retirement plan. If you're someone who's closer to retirement, maybe in your 50s or 60s, we would do a full retirement plan and talk about your goals for retirement, your wants, your wishes, your assets, and making sure we can make you on a good path, a good plan to accomplish those goals in retirement. So that is all that I had for today. Again, super high level on a bunch of different financial planning topics. Just wanted to say thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, again, feel free to give us a call at 1-833-Emerj360, or you can email us at info@emerj360.com. We're happy to meet with you, have a conversation. As always, there's no cost to meet with us and just chat about kind of some questions that you have, what services we offer, how we can assist. We're happy to meet with you there at no cost. Remember to watch your email for the recording of this. And then if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. So thanks for attending. We appreciate your time and have a good evening.